It's time to go beyond the headlines, cause I don't put in overtime just so I can headline. Okay, now it's Fox Sports, I'm live with Renee. Going hard every day, sports rapping every play. Different segments for your favorites, coming at you daily with positive vibes, yeah, we some game changers. Basketball, football, soccer, with different interviews, you never know who may pop up. Listen, only on Beyond the Headlines, this is Beyond the Headlines. Only on Beyond the Headlines, this is Beyond the Headlines. Only on Beyond the Headlines, this is Beyond the Headlines with Renee Washington.
Welcome back to Beyond the Headlines with Renee Washington. This week we have Alyse LaHue joining us, General Manager of Sky Blue FC in the NWSL. Alyse, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
No problem. I'm always looking forward to having people on to talk about not only soccer, but the growth of women's sports in general. So for you, I came across your page and information. I was like, perfect. I definitely need to have you on my show. So I'm happy to have you.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I've been pretty integrated in the women's sports space. I think that's my cup of tea. So I'm always down to chat about women's sports.
Perfect. Let's get right into it. So you have been a part of the excitement that was just going on this past week or so as we had the NWSL draft, and it's always an exciting conference when all the soccer minds get to come together for the draft, for sessions, panels, and everything else, whether it's a professional or college, high school, just soccer fans in general all come together. So take us through the draft as a whole, the experience, beyond the specific draft picks and everything and all the tremendous women that now have the chance to continue their career at the professional level. But for you, what did you see as we're talking about the growth of the game as a big topic in women's soccer?
Yeah, I mean, the draft was on Thursday during the United Soccer Coaches Convention. So I get in actually on Monday night. We have league meetings while we're there. I'm also on the Women's Advocacy Council for United Soccer Coaches, so I kind of have double duty while I'm there between, some of the NWSL stuff going on and then also my work with the soccer coaches and the Advocacy Council. So with the draft on Thursday, it's sort of, the major thing that's going on for me, but on top of it, when you have all these meetings, and it's really one of the major times of the year that everybody in the league is together. And then on top of it, you basically have everybody else in the soccer world and old acquaintances and professional acquaintances. And it's not a lot of sleeping. It's just a hectic week to get through. It's incredible. There's just so much that gets accomplished during the week. I had an opportunity to hop on a couple other podcasts while I was out there, obviously, meet up with a lot of acquaintances and friends. All in all, just an incredible week. And then obviously the draft is really the exclamation point in the middle of all of it. And we have been pretty hard at work leading up to the draft. I mean, that's months of work behind the scenes for us. And obviously with the draft shortly after the holidays, you don't take much of a holiday break. You're really kind of working through it and making sure that you've got everything planned and prepped. But as I've said to some others, you have to remain nimble to the process because there is so much that comes up along the way in terms of trades and trade opportunities. So, we go in with a plan, but we remain open-minded to whatever else comes up.
Absolutely. So getting into your role specifically, something that really stood out to me when you were named the GM of Sky Blue back in September is that you're only one of two women that are general managers in the NWSL. And that you became the first woman, congratulations on this, to serve as GM in the WPS and the NWSL. And so something that I know I've been talking a lot about as an advocate for the growth of women's sports across all sports, you're a woman in a position of power. That's something that we need more of. So as you were named GM and now you're trying to grow not only Sky Blue, but just the game in general, what's really been your focus in that position to help pull other women up and also to help, as you talk about being an advocate, to do that work in the community?
Yeah, I like the way you introed that, a woman in power. That was a great way to segue into that. It sounds awesome. For me, I had always wanted to be a GM. So when I had the opportunity several years ago now to step into this role, for me, that was my dream. It's what I wanted to do. I wasn't really concerned with, were there other women doing the role, or were the men? It wasn't something that I really was thinking about. For me, I was just hell-bent on becoming a general manager. I was lucky during the last league to actually mentor under a woman GM, Marcia McDermott, who's actually the technical advisor now for Sky Blue. So I'm lucky enough that I get to continue working with her throughout my career. But I did work in WPS during the last league. I became a GM actually of the Chicago team in this league, in NWSL. So I think I'm going on my maybe 6th or 7th year of being a GM. I've lost track at this point, but so I have a lot of experience within the league and across multiple teams. And I take the role, obviously for me, it's a tremendous privilege to get to take this role on. I think just having the opportunity to work in a women's professional soccer league, knowing that 2 previous pro leagues in this country failed, and I was, in one of them, I had to live through that. It was horrible for a young person that was aspiring to be a GM, and then you learn that your league is folding, and the dreams kind of crushed at that point. It was pretty devastating for me when we went through that. So with this new league coming about, and NWSL, obviously I took the opportunity to leap back at it, and very quickly got to become a GM, which was always, again, my dream in life. So I don't take any of this for granted. It's every single day I feel really blessed to be in this role, and I feel like this is a really important role. Every one of us that are working within this league, all of the fans, we all have a responsibility to make sure that our women's leagues keep going, these women's pro leagues. I don't want to see any of, any further leagues fail, and certainly not this one. So I take that responsibility really seriously. But, then on the other side, there's really only, as of right now, Stephanie Lee with the Utah Royals. She's the only other woman GM in the league right now. So out of 9 teams, there's only 2 of us. And I'd like to see those statistics start to change a bit. I think we can do better as a league with getting more women into some of these high-level roles. So, I hope I can be an advocate for that and certainly inspire others to come up into these positions.
Yes, absolutely. I hope so too. I mean, it's time. And I know that's something that across all women's sports, with the WNBA just having their CBA that was announced, and as we see the women's soccer players, specifically around the national team, really advocating for change, whether it's in salary or just in positions of power like yourself, that is something, it's time. It's 2020, it's time for that to happen and for us to start seeing some things moving that direction. But you also touched on being a part of 2 leagues and joining this league as you were weary coming into it, in a sense, because you did see what happened with the previous 2 as they folded. What makes the NWSL, though, so different? The formula for success as they're continuing to get into the next season of 2020, different than what you saw with specifically the WPS, since you worked closely with that?
Yeah, I mean, again, WPS was only 3 seasons, and the predecessor to that, WUSA, was only 3 seasons. So This is pretty exciting to have NWSL now as we're embarking on year 8. I mean, we're in uncharted waters now in terms of, women's pro soccer in this country. For me, I'm a fan of women's sports. I've always followed the WNBA, and I was really lucky that I called my gap year, but I had an opportunity to go work in the WNBA for a year. I was with the Seattle Storm a couple of years ago. And for me, it was really about taking as much in as I possibly could. And I loved working for the Storm. They have an all-women ownership group. Alyse LaHue, the team president there, got to work under her as well. So seeing what they did and having all of these women in positions of power was really incredible for me to see. But it was also about learning from the WNBA because they've been around for over 20 years. And I think there are so many things that we can take from them as well. So, I call it cross-pollination, but I think it's so important that we learn from each other and not sit in our silos, especially as women's sports. It's cool to see us start to support each other more, do more co-promotions together. So I think that's a really important part of the process as well. But again, we're in uncharted territory right now and entering year 8. What I have seen from this league is a dramatic recommitment from the owners just over the last couple months. For lack of a better term, they've been calling it NWSL 2.0, but they recently committed to increasing the salaries across the board for players, from the minimum salary even to the max salary, and adding even allocation money where you can potentially go beyond the max salary as well for players that reach a certain criteria. Increasing the housing standards for players. So now housing is provided year-round for players, any contracted players, which is incredible for their quality of life and not having to worry about moving in and out of market. So I think along with, the way we've seen the WNBA, CBA come about, NWSL as well has taken some pretty big leaps in terms of increasing the standard. And I'll continue to be an advocate as well for pushing the league forward in all of those regards. What more can we do for the players? How can we provide for them better? How can we really provide them the best professional environments that we can, while also remaining a sustainable league, which obviously is important that we make sure it sticks around for a long time to come.
Yes, yeah, without a doubt. And so as you talk about the NWSL getting into year 8, I know for me personally, this is a conversation that's always intriguing to me to hear about the growth of the league. Since when I came out of college in 2014 and was going through the process of transitioning and had the opportunity to possibly play with Sky Blue, they didn't have these same opportunities that you speak about. That was something that as I took a step away from the game and was now becoming a reporter, to follow it and see the way that it's growing, I can definitely see that from the outside looking in. So I guess my next question to you would be specifically looking at Sky Blue, as you are coming in to change and grow the franchise, what have you seen between the draft and the players? Because, last year to next year, what are you really trying to improve on and hope to build in terms of the foundation and legacy you're bringing to Sky Blue?
Yeah, I think I came in as the interim GM last April, and that was really a time of great transition for the club. I, sort of inherited the club as it was going through a really challenging phase. And I'm not scared of a challenge. I've been around the league for quite a while, and I sort of believe what I believe in my approach to leadership and the way I try to lead, and I have a really fan-first focus. So I felt like as a club, Sky Blue is the representative of New Jersey and New York City. This should be a preeminent club within the NWSL, but also really within, the world women's soccer. New York City is a destination. We should be able to attract international players as well. But obviously, we're starting at home, and we've got to improve everything across the board. So, one of our owners who had really been silent before, Tammy Murphy, she came on at the same time I did, and for us, it was really just kind of flipping the club upside down and saying, okay, what needs to be done here? What things do we need to change? And really taking a fine-tooth comb across all of operations and figuring out how we can improve things for the players, for the fans, and really just grow the club as a whole. And we've had a pretty extraordinary vision along the way. And it's hard to believe sometimes that she and I really have been doing this for less than a year now at Sky Blue. But I think we've made a lot of strides in the meantime, a lot of changes in the club. Obviously, moving to Red Bull Arena is huge for us. We're looking to move our training facility. That's going to be announced soon. Really moving all of our club operations to northern Jersey, which puts us right outside New York City. And our proximity to fans there is going to be so much greater as well, and we're excited for that opportunity. So there's really nothing within the club that hasn't been looked at with a microscope and that we've made changes on, and our plan is going to continue. We still have a lot of big plans to achieve along the way, and both on and off the field. But the one thing I will say is that seeing the excitement from players, I think that's a big one for me, as well as the fans, about the direction of the club and where it's going. It's their feedback that really matters the most to me. So, when we have players that have been with the club for several years that, are texting me or the head coach Freya and saying, this is the most excited they've been going into a preseason, really since they've been at the club. I think those are the things that mean a lot to me and say that we're on the right track here.
Wow, it's like you read my mind, because that's actually the direction I was going to go next. I know once I heard news about Red Bull's Arena officially becoming home for you guys moving forward in 2020, and I've been seeing how things have been unraveling. On this show, we actually had Gina Lewandowski and Jen Hoy on the show back in the fall, and they were talking about, the way the team was still sticking together through the challenging phase and figuring things out and finding out their identity. So it is great to hear and encouraging to hear, not only as we talk about the NWSL, but also specifically with Sky Blue, with soccer being so huge in New Jersey and New York and so many talented players coming out of the area, the direction that things are moving. So that's tremendous, and I'm excited to see it as well. But I'm also curious to know, as you mentioned, the feedback that you've been getting. The part of it that I've been talking to people about is, as we continue to grow the game, also getting fans involved and getting more people at games and following the team and connecting with the players, So what's that feedback like that you've been getting from, as you talk about the players, but even the fans, as they've been watching everything continue to develop from the outside looking in?
Yeah, I think it's just a general feeling of excitement. It was important for me sort of to, I would say, put the club back in the fans' hands. They're the most important part of this equation. I always say us as a front office staff, we're just in a role of privilege and we're just conduits to the experience. But it's really about the fan, and I want them to know that Sky Blue is their club and that they have a say in what's happening and in what direction it goes. And again, just sort of putting it back in the hands of the community is so integral. And obviously part of that is the fan experience when they come to a game day, but it's also all the things we do. We only have 12 home games, so it's what we do the other days of the year, year round, and in the off season, the ways we're engaging fans and the things we're doing. And we want to make sure that we continue to engage with, our families and our youth clubs and those youth soccer players who have really been our bread and butter through the years. But also with playing at Red Bull Arena, it allows us to really attract another segment of adult fan. Those adults that live in North New Jersey, that live in New York City, that don't have a car. Now they can use public transportation to get to our games, where really that was nearly impossible before. So we have a whole new segment, I think, of fan that we can really engage in the process. And, just recently we did our first ever, we called it our adult fantasy camp, but it was essentially a one-day adult soccer camp. And some of our players actually were the coaches and they ran it. Tons of great feedback on that. So I feel like we're really, again, on the right track with everything. Feedback has been really good. And for us, it's just making sure that we spread out as much as we can and really try to provide ways for all of our diverse fan base opportunities to get involved with the club.
Oh, that is tremendous. That was perfect. That was beautiful. I love that. And I'm excited to see how this continues to grow, because it is time for soccer for first of all, our women's leagues to be here to stay. As you talk about getting into year 8, we need many more years to come. And then also to give the next generation something to look forward to and aspire to want to be an NWSL player, like the players they get to watch in their area. So, Alyse, where can our listeners follow you to keep up with all that you're doing in soccer, from your nonprofit work to your Sky Blue and the NWSL and all that you've got going on the soccer forefront?
Yeah, I'm probably most communicative on Twitter. I really try to be fan forward, so I try to answer as many questions as I can, and I consider myself, one of the most accessible GMs. I try to be there and answer questions. So Twitter is just at @LaHue, first initial, last name. I'm also on Instagram, but that's honestly probably more photos of my cat than anything. So less engaging on there. But Twitter and Instagram are the two ways that I probably engage the most with fans.
Perfect. Thank you so much for taking time to join us this week on Beyond the Headlines with Renee Washington. It's a fresh of breath air to be able to have this conversation with you and hear all that you've got going on behind the scenes to make the game and grow the game even more. So thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, no, this has been awesome. And I wanted to say to you, Renee, I remember when you had you mentioned one of our players, Gina Lewandowski, was on your show, and actually I listened to the podcast, and it sparked some really great discussions between me and her about her experiences at Bayern. And I actually have to thank you for that podcast, because we talked a lot about medical and some of the things that she had when she was playing in Europe. And for me, I'm learning and growing, and I'm also trying to figure out the best way that we can provide for our athletes. So it sparked some really great conversations and some actually actionable items for me that I'm going to take into the season.
Oh my gosh. No, you just made I'm like beaming right now.
I mean it. It was really great.
So
I think anytime you can, spark conversations between people, I think that's pretty tremendous. So I got to thank you for that.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you for listening. That's my hope, is that people listen to this and it triggers and sparks something positive. So, wow, that means the world. I really appreciate that. Thank you so, so much.
You bet. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, Renee.